So this event started 6 years ago at the office of our next keynote speaker. The idea behind this was to bring together Westwood and Thousand Oaks. But it took us long 7 years to convince both Bradway to actually come and speak to you all. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today. He's the CEO and chairman of Amgen, Bob Bradway, please.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Ray, for your remarks, and Amir for your introduction, and I am delighted to be here. I'm sorry that it took as long as it did. I didn't realize it was already 7 years. But we obviously, as you have heard from Amir and from Ray, have a close association with LA Best, and we're excited about what this organization has done since 2018 in terms of promoting Southern California in the biotechnology industry. So we have found, and I hope you will all as well, that this forum gives us a great opportunity to make new acquaintances, to identify new partnership opportunities, and I hope also to foster the next generation of talent for the biotechnology and biology communities. And we recognize at Amgen that having a pipeline of talented people is absolutely critical to our business. And that's why we're so engaged at Amgen in supporting the development of scientific talent in our community. And I thought before talking about Amgen, I might just say a few words about the ways in which we're engaged in promoting the STEM education in our communities. And I might start by describing a program that we do with high school students in the area. And we have a program called the Amgen Biotech Experience, which brings hands-on biotech experiments into high school biology classrooms. And we hope in doing that, and we have found in doing that we're helping teachers to ignite in their students a real passion for the science. Now, we run this program nationally, but just here in the greater Los Angeles area, we've invested $1.5 million to bring this experience to nearly 20,000 students at 100 schools every year. So it's a really exciting opportunity to introduce younger children in our community to the excitement of biology. For college students, Amgen sponsors a program known as the Amgen Scholars, which gives undergraduates the opportunity to pursue research at top universities around the world. Locally, we have funded nearly 700 Amgen Scholars, enabling students to take up research assignments at UCLA and Caltech, both of which will again be hosting Amgen Scholars this summer. And another example, we have an education outreach program through which we provide state-of-the-art instruction in drug discovery and development to aspiring scientists. And that program has already reached more than 250 undergraduate and graduate students in the area, including across 11 UC and Cal State institutions. So we're very proud of what that is doing, again, to fire the passion for biology and biotechnology in the local community. And then finally, over the past 5 years, we've established more than 30 research collaborations with major academic institutions across Southern California. At Caltech, for example, we're providing funding for up to 5 research projects each year to support graduate students to help with translational research. Now, turning to the local startup community, which is absolutely thriving, we've also been active. And in 2021, we helped to launch the SoCal Golden Ticket program. And this program has supported now 4 startup companies in the LA area, providing scientific and business mentorship. The most recent recipient of that was MabSwitch, a company chosen in part for having developed a promising affinity switch platform for therapeutic antibody development. So as I hope these examples illustrate, collaboration at all levels, from high school to postdoc to startups, is at the heart of the Amgen story. And now maybe I'll just turn to that Amgen story. And I hope that maybe what you can take away from my following remarks are a few things. First, I hope that you might learn a little something new about the Amgen story and how it is that our company got its start here in Southern California. You've heard a little bit of it already from Ray. But more than 40 years ago, we got our start here in Southern California, and of course, we've gone on to become a global leader in biotechnology. I also hope that I can help convince you that we're in an exciting moment in the field of biology and technology. We call it a hinge moment, as the technologies and biology are coming together in ways that are amplifying the strengths of both, and we think will result in really exciting, rapid breakthroughs in our understanding of tough diseases and how to treat them. And then finally, I hope that I can convince you that we need more innovation in this nation, not less, and that all of us must bear some responsibility for sustaining the ecosystem that makes that innovation possible. Now, turning to Amgen, for those of you who may not be as familiar with our company, let me just take a few minutes to tell you about our founding story. As you heard from Ray, we were started here at the dawn of the biotechnology revolution about 40 years ago, in 1980 to be exact. And our scientists were early pioneers in the use of recombinant DNA technology, which of course launched the era of biologic medicines to address some of the world's most challenging diseases. And in those early years, South San Francisco and Cambridge, Massachusetts were already emerging as magnets for biotechnology investment, but there wasn't much going on in greater Los Angeles. And in view of the abundant academic talent in this region, our founders saw that as a missed opportunity. And so they chose to place a biotechnology company here in Southern California in 1980. Now they chose to do that in the community of Thousand Oaks, California, which is about a 7-year journey from Westwood, or 40 miles up the road. But they started the company there, and it was originally known as Applied Molecular Genetics. Now, there are two stories about how that location was chosen. Story one, it was chosen because it was roughly equidistant between a number of leading life science institutions like UCLA, USC, UC Santa Barbara, and of course, Caltech. Story two, a little more colorful. You see, remember that in 1980, the public was wary of science gone wrong, and there was a fear that our genetically engineered organisms could pose a risk if they escaped into the atmosphere. And it was seen as prudent, therefore, that we not be located in a major population center, but rather we be somewhere more rural. And in fact, the particular site that was chosen for the first building for Amgen was chosen with respect to the prevailing winds, so that if one of these organisms escaped into the atmosphere, it wasn't going to blow to a major population center. Very thoughtful our founders were. Now, there is some controversy about that second story, but as it's captured in an oral history of Southern California business at the Bancroft Library at Berkeley, I believe it must be true. I confess that when I discussed the matter with one of our founders, he said, "That's a bunch of bunk." So anyway, it is a more colorful story, and I'm sticking with it. So that's how we landed in the rural suburb of Thousand Oaks. But regardless of which of the accounts you believe, it's beyond dispute that the close connections that we had from our founding with academic institutions across California were critical to the success of our organization. And as you heard from Ray, many of our early scientific advisors, and of course, many of the hires who went on to build this company came from schools like UCLA, Caltech, UCSB, and so forth. So without the local community, Amgen wouldn't exist and wouldn't have gone on to become the successful global entity that it is today. Today, also, by the way, Amgen is one of the two biotechnology companies that were created in that original revolution of recombinant DNA technology in the 1980s. One of just two companies that's left independent and vibrant today. The other company, by the way, is Biogen, represented here this morning by Chris Biebacher, its CEO, who will speak a little bit later this morning. So despite the fact that hundreds and even thousands of these companies got their start in the 1980s, really just two of us remain as strong independent companies all these years later. Now, we've come a long way since our founding in 1980. From a handful of scientists working in Thousand Oaks, we now employ more than 27,000 people around the world, and we are operating in about 100 countries now, and that global reach enabled us to serve the needs of 13 million patients last year alone. And we built one of the broadest and deepest portfolios of medicines in our industry, and we're excited about what we see in the future. But starting again at the beginning, our first medicine launched in 1989 was erythropoietin, which was a medicine branded as Epogen. And that, of course, was for the treatment of dialysis patients suffering from chronic kidney disease. And in those early days, Amgen was competing furiously with a number of other biotechnology companies to be the first to produce erythropoietin using recombinant DNA, and the stakes were high. And a team at Amgen, led by a young Taiwanese immigrant, Fu Quin Lin, worked tirelessly to be the first to get it done, and they succeeded. And in succeeding, they established Amgen as a leader in this new field. And that product, that first product, Epogen, was not just foundational for Amgen, but for the whole of the biotechnology industry. It clearly changed the practice of medicine in kidney disease, enabling patients to lead more active or normal lives. But it also pointed to the promise of biotechnology and gave rise to an enormous investment in the promise of this field. And there was tremendous excitement at Amgen. In fact, there are still a few people around at the company who remember those first days when the product was approved. And there's a charming story that relates to our location here this morning, that on the day that the product was approved, an Amgen sales rep was so excited he could hardly contain himself. And he took the first batch of the product that had rolled off the production line in Thousand Oaks, and he jammed it into his Jeep, and he raced down the 101 freeway to the UCLA Medical Center, where he double parked in front of the hospital to hand deliver the product so that patients wouldn't have to wait another minute for it, or a minute longer than necessary for it. He got a parking ticket. He still raises the fact with me that he got a parking ticket for delivering the drug on that day. He paid the ticket, but I think it was a small price to pay on what was such a momentous day for patients and, as I said, for our company and for the industry. Since that first product, we've gone on to grow a portfolio that now includes 35 FDA-approved innovative medicines and biosimilars. And what they all have in common is that they address serious illnesses. And with respect to our portfolio, not just serious illnesses, but areas where the unmet medical need is still very high. And I thought what I might do is just highlight a few of the key examples of those first-in-class novel medicines that reflect the Amgen of today. And starting with oncology, I'll choose a medicine that was approved just last Thursday, a medicine known as Imdelltra, for the treatment of extensive-stage small cell lung cancer. And this disease, with a 5-year survival rate of just 3%, badly needs better answers. And we believe that Imdelltra is part of the solution. And in a mark of its clinical importance, the FDA granted Imdelltra breakthrough therapy designation and approved the product ahead of schedule, as I said, just last week. Imdelltra is the first bispecific T-cell engaging therapy to treat any solid tumor. And so this is a landmark achievement for Amgen, and also a landmark achievement for the field. And we're really excited about what that represents, not just for small cell lung cancer, but for the other solid tumors that we want to deploy the same technology against. Turning from cancer to cardiovascular disease, Amgen developed a medicine called Repatha, which is a PCSK9 inhibitor that has been shown to profoundly reduce LDL cholesterol, which is a leading risk factor for heart attack and stroke. Cardiovascular disease has long been and remains the top cause of death worldwide. In fact, it claims the life of an American every 30 seconds. And when you hear us talk about seeking to develop innovative medicines that make a big difference for patients suffering from serious disease where the unmet need is high, that's what we're referring to. The death of an American every 30 seconds is an area where the unmet medical need is high. And that's what we're committed to addressing at Amgen. Of course, a key contributor to heart disease is obesity, which is a complex disorder that affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide and has multiple underlying causes and, of course, serious comorbidities. And Amgen has a product called Maritide, which is currently in phase 2 clinical development for the treatment of obesity. In a phase 1 trial, the molecule demonstrated rapid, substantial, and sustained weight loss when injected once monthly. Shifting gears from the world's most prevalent diseases, Amgen is also focused on rare diseases with drugs like Tepezza, which we're taking to markets all around the world. This biologic medicine treats thyroid eye disease, a progressive and potentially vision-threatening disease that can cause symptoms such as eye bulging and double vision. Our two most recent external acquisitions are ChemoCentrix in 2022 and Horizon Therapeutics last year. And those deals both helped establish Amgen as a leader globally in the area of rare diseases. And our approach to innovation is clear. We seek to advance first-in-class and best-in-class medicines, again, to repeat, that make a big difference for patients suffering from serious disease where the unmet medical need is high. Now, we don't particularly care. We seek to be agnostic. We want to be associated with the very best innovation, whether it's internally generated or whether we've brought it in from licensing or acquisition opportunities. But if you look at our portfolio over time, roughly half of our business is comprised of molecules that we discovered internally in Ray's organization, for example, our discovery research organization, and the other half is from molecules that we've partnered on the outside and brought in to Amgen to try to add value to with our global organization. So we are committed to innovation, and of course, one of the reasons that we are is that we believe, as I said earlier in my remarks, that this nation and nations around the world need more innovation. Why? Well, because populations are getting older, wealthier, and more urban. And that's a recipe for increased chronic and acute disease prevalence. And fortunately, our industry's ability, and I believe our company's ability to innovate, have never been better. And that's driven in large part by the extraordinary confluence of developments in technology and biology that's happening right now at a really opportune time for the world. And Amgen has been preparing for this moment for more than a decade, and we're trying now to leverage it to design and develop new medicines with better speed and success than ever before. You'll hear from our head of research and development, Jay Bradner, a little bit later this morning, and he'll talk in more detail about our pipeline. But I thought I might just highlight a couple examples of how recent improvement in our understanding of human biology and our ability to manipulate vast quantities of data are turbocharging our drug discovery work. First, we're using vast amounts of human genetic data and the insight derived from that to try to develop precision medicines. And since committing to human genetic research in 2012, we've built a massive database of genetic information from more than 3 million volunteers worldwide. So we're seeking to understand genetics at the level of the single nucleotide. And so when you're talking about 3 million people, each with 3 billion base pairs of information, you can see we're talking about very large numbers and large computational challenges. But fortunately, the tools necessary to do that are evolving rapidly, and those tools are enabling us to derive powerful insights from the data to guide both our research and our development work. A second example of how biology and technology are converging is happening in the way that we design therapeutic proteins faster and we believe more successfully. For decades, drug makers developed biologic medicines using proteins that occur naturally in the human body. And this is a slow and expensive process that involves years of engineering and testing prototype molecules before moving any of them into clinical trials. And these protein-based medicines often behave unpredictably, failing to achieve the desired outcome or yielding unacceptable side effects. But today, using artificial intelligence and machine learning, we're already finding that we're better able to make and select proteins that we think are going to be more likely to succeed in the clinic. And that conviction is enabling us to move faster and with more confidence in the potential for success, with which in a high-stakes game like ours, where it takes on average 10 to 15 years and up to $2.5 billion of research and development investment in a single molecule, that's a big deal for us. Now, innovation isn't just confined to our research and our development activities. It also applies to our innovative biomanufacturing. And this is an area in which I think we're different from many of our peers. We have committed to biomanufacturing as a source of competitive advantage. We invest heavily in the science of biologic manufacturing at Amgen. And we have built a global network of what we call our next generation biomanufacturing plants to enable us to maintain our record of having supplied every patient every time with our medicines. Now, that might sound simple and it might sound obvious, but unfortunately, it's uncommon in our industry. We and only one other major company again, Biogen, we're the only two companies that have not shorted the market with a product for patients. And so unfortunately, it's far more common in our industry for companies to fail to meet the needs of every patient every time. And that's why you read as often as you do in the press about drug shortages, even for things like chemotherapies. So we are committed to continuing to stay ahead of the challenge by investing in the science of protein manufacturing. Now, to realize their promise, new medicines have to actually make it to patients who might benefit from the medicines. And unfortunately, all too often, that doesn't happen. Underserved communities, especially communities of color, are not getting equitable access to new innovation. And as a result, they bear a disproportionately large disease burden, especially when it comes to chronic conditions like cardiovascular disease, asthma, and cancer. And one way that we're tackling that challenge is by broadening the ethnic and racial diversity of our clinical trials so that participants reflect better the overall patient population in our trials. And we're hopeful that this will lead down the line to better access to medicines across a wide range of patient types. And in addition to expanding access for patients, we need to find creative ways to sustain the policy ecosystem that has made the United States a leader in biotech innovation. The bulk of innovation in biopharmaceuticals arises from the United States. And I think this is clearly because the U.S. has had an ecosystem that attracts the pharmaceutical and biotech talent, investment, and the kind of innovation that we're all excited about today. But our pro-innovative healthcare ecosystem is fragile, and it can easily be undermined. If you weaken any one of the pillars that supports it, industry, academia, the investment climate for molecule or investing in risky biotechnology, government support, government policy, weaken any one of those pillars and the whole structure becomes wobbly. And unfortunately, that's what's happening today. And there's a disturbing trend of declining political support in the US for biopharmaceutical innovation. And while elected officials always say they will support innovation, the reality is that most of the policies introduced in state legislatures like ours and in the US Congress and by the current administration run counter to encouraging or even maintaining innovation for the US biopharmaceutical industry. And proposals that include direct and indirect price controls, erosion of intellectual property rights, reduced R&D incentives, increased taxes, and shortened product life cycles undermine innovation in this country. Right? It's very simple. If you reduce the incentives to invest in risky research and development, you're going to get less investment in research and development, and that's what's beginning to happen in this country now. Now, it wasn't always this way. Right? Congressional delegations used to band together in bipartisan support of industries that were the foundation of innovation, jobs, and economic output in their states. It's been quite a while, but I remember when the congressional delegations from California and Massachusetts were extremely proud of their homegrown biopharmaceutical industries. Not so much today. They also understood then that innovation leads to better health outcomes for patients and lower costs to taxpayers and the government. Now, meaningful legislation is a heavy lift, especially in healthcare, and it's usually accomplished through bipartisan efforts. And the lack of bipartisanship in recent years has really derailed many of the market-based policies that could benefit patients in our healthcare system without undermining our biopharmaceutical leadership. And it's tempting in today's environment to think that our bipartisan cooperation to advance healthcare reform is a pipe dream. But there's an example from not so long ago of just such cooperation. In 2010, Democrats Ted Kennedy and Anna Eshoo and Republicans Orrin Hatch and Joe Barton led a successful effort in the Senate and House to enact FDA legislation to create a pathway for biosimilars. The members identified the policy need and they worked together across the aisle to get it done. And they crafted a policy which encouraged biosimilar investment and uptake while still preserving the incentives for innovation. And the result of that law has created a strong and growing U.S. biosimilar market, which has brought savings for patients and for the healthcare system overall. And if you share my conviction that our society needs more innovation, not less, I hope you'll agree that we must all find a way to persuade our public officials, and especially those who represent the communities in which our organizations are based, to sustain the policy ecosystem that makes our innovation possible. And as a company, we believe the data are clear. We believe strongly that it makes sense for a nation to invest in innovation that delivers big improvements for areas of high unmet medical need, or innovations and investments that make sense for productivity, for GDP growth, for the health of the nation. It's very clear. And we think the United States has benefited tremendously from the early adoption of the innovation, for example, created from our industry. When we look at the comparative analysis of Western European countries who ration and delay for years access to innovative new cancer medicines, we see exactly the consequence that we would expect. So we think the investment in innovation is sensible, but it's not one that's intuitively and widely understood. And I think those of us who are in the ecosystem, again, should feel a sense of responsibility for trying to share and help our elected officials and our colleagues in the community understand why this is sensible. But one of the statistics that always sticks with me, if you look just at heart disease alone, the loss in productivity every year in the United States from heart disease, much of which is preventable, can be measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. So the stakes are high here, and the challenge is significant. But at Amgen, we're partnering with patients and scientists and policymakers to continuously try to advance solutions that will make medicines more affordable, more widely available, while still preserving that ecosystem that draws all of us here together this morning and encourages the creation of new cures and treatments. Now, I think there's much that needs to be fixed in our healthcare system, but there's also much we can celebrate as we contemplate new cures and treatments that are in store. And I hope you share my excitement and optimism for the vast opportunities that exist to advance human health and well-being. And many of the innovations that will reach the market in the coming years are being developed right here in the research laboratories of Southern California. And at Amgen, we're thrilled to be part of this ecosystem along with UCLA and other academic life science research centers. And we look forward to continuing our collaboration with UCLA and with the other partners in the room to advance knowledge of human biology and develop innovations that will serve the needs of patients. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here today.